Solomon was born in Jerusalem, the son of King David and Bathsheba. His birth came after pain and repentance. David and Bathsheba's first child had died as a consequence of David's sin, but in his mercy, God gave them another son. They named him Solomon, and the Lord loved him. Through the prophet Nathan, God gave Solomon a special name, Jedediah, which means loved by the Lord. From the very beginning, his life was touched by divine purpose. David had many sons, and as he grew older, the question of who would succeed him became urgent. One of his sons, Adonijah, declared himself king while David was still alive. But David, remembering God's promise, acted swiftly. With the prophet Nathan and the priest Zadok, David ordered that Solomon be anointed king. He rode on the king's mule and was proclaimed ruler before all the people. Adonijah's rebellion collapsed, and Solomon's reign began with the clear blessing of God. Before David died, he gave Solomon this charge: "Be strong and show yourself a man. Keep the charge of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, his judgments, and his testimonies." David had learned the hard way that kingship without obedience leads to disaster. Solomon listened and began his rule with wisdom and order. Not long after becoming king, Solomon went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices. That night, God appeared to him in a dream. "Ask what I shall give you," said the Lord. Solomon, aware of his youth and the weight of leadership, asked not for wealth or victory, but for wisdom. He prayed for a heart that could discern between good and evil so that he could govern the people justly. God was pleased. Because Solomon had asked for wisdom rather than riches or long life, God gave him both, wisdom greater than any before or after him, and also riches and honor unlike any other king of his time. And God promised him a long life if he would walk in obedience. Solomon returned to Jerusalem and immediately demonstrated his wisdom. 2 women came before him, both claiming to be the mother of a baby. With no witnesses and no clear evidence, Solomon called for a sword. "Divide the child in 2, he said. One woman agreed. The other begged the king to give the child to the other woman, sparing his life. Solomon declared her the true mother and gave her the baby. All Israel marveled, and the people recognized that God had truly given Solomon divine wisdom. His kingdom grew strong. He appointed wise governors, managed trade routes, and brought peace to the land. Israel flourished like never before. There was prosperity in every corner. Silver was as common as stones, and peace was enjoyed on all borders. The people lived in safety, and Solomon's fame spread far beyond Israel's borders. Solomon's greatest project was the temple of the Lord. David had longed to build it, but God had told him that task would fall to his son. Solomon honored that calling. He worked with King Hiram of Tyre to gather cedar from Lebanon, stones from the hills, and the best craftsmen in the region. The temple took 7 years to complete. It was built with reverence, every detail designed to honor the glory of God. The walls were lined with cedar and overlaid with gold. Inside stood the most holy place, where the Ark of the Covenant would rest. When the temple was completed, Solomon gathered the people and brought the ark into its resting place. As the priests withdrew, a thick cloud filled the temple. It was the glory of the Lord. Solomon stood before the altar, lifted his hands, and prayed. He praised God for keeping his promises to David. He asked God to hear the prayers of his people, to forgive them when they turned back in repentance, and even to hear the prayers of foreigners who came to seek him. His prayer revealed a heart that longed for God's mercy and righteousness. Then Solomon turned to the people and blessed them. The dedication lasted for days, with sacrifices, music, and worship. Fire came down from heaven to consume the offerings, and the people fell with their faces to the ground. It was a holy moment, a high point in Israel's history. God appeared to Solomon again, this time with a warning. He confirmed that his eyes and heart would always be on the temple. But he also reminded Solomon that obedience was not optional. If he or his descendants turned away and worshipped other gods, the temple would be cast out of God's sight, and Israel would become a byword among the nations. At first, Solomon walked faithfully. His wisdom grew. He wrote thousands of proverbs and songs. He studied the world around him, the trees, animals, and stars. Leaders from many lands came to hear his words. One of the most famous was the Queen of Sheba. She came with gifts and hard questions. After hearing his answers, seeing his palace, and witnessing the temple worship, she was left speechless. She said, "The half was not told me. Your wisdom and prosperity exceed the report I heard." But even with all this glory, cracks began to form in Solomon's heart. He married many foreign women, Egyptians, Moabites, Ammonites, Sidonians, and Hittites. These marriages were often political alliances, but they brought trouble. God had commanded Israel not to intermarry with foreign nations, warning that their gods would lead his people astray. And that's exactly what happened. Solomon's heart turned away from the Lord. He built shrines for the false gods his wives worshipped, Ashtoreth, Chemosh, and Molech. He even offered sacrifices on high places, something the Lord had strictly forbidden. The man who had built the temple of God was now building altars to idols. God became angry. He had spoken to Solomon twice. He had appeared to him. He had blessed him. But Solomon had not remained faithful. So the Lord declared that the kingdom would be torn away, not in Solomon's lifetime, but in his son's. For the sake of David, God would leave a remnant. One tribe would remain under David's house, but the rest would rebel. God raised up enemies against Solomon. Hadad, a prince of Edom who had escaped David's campaigns, returned and opposed Israel. Rezon of Damascus harassed Solomon from the north. Most notably, Jeroboam, one of Solomon's own officials, was told by the prophet Ahijah that he would rule over 10 tribes. Solomon tried to kill him, but Jeroboam fled to Egypt. Solomon ruled Israel for 40 years. His kingdom reached its greatest earthly glory, but his reign ended in compromise and decline. He died in Jerusalem and was buried in the city of David. His son Rehoboam became king. But soon after, the kingdom was divided, just as God had said. Solomon's life teaches us many things. He shows us that wisdom is powerful, but it's not enough on its own. A wise man can still fall if his heart is not guarded. Great blessings do not protect us from temptation. A strong start doesn't guarantee a faithful finish. But Solomon also teaches us that God is patient. He gives warnings. He sends prophets. He remembers his promises, even when we forget ours. In the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon reflects on life's meaning after all his searching. He had wealth, pleasure, knowledge, and power. And yet he called it all vanity, a vapor, chasing the wind. His final conclusion is simple, yet powerful. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. The life of Solomon is a reminder that our hearts must remain anchored in God. Success, knowledge, and fame are temporary, but obedience, humility, and devotion are eternal.